It's everything you want.
All right. Hi, Yin Young listeners. Welcome back. It's been a minute. So yeah, we want to, before we start our episode, we want to give a shout out to Magic Mind. Basically, I know a lot of our listeners, we talk about self-improvement, and I know a lot of you listen in to hear maybe advice about, how to be a better version of ourselves. And one thing I know Dan has tried is this productivity drink called Magic Mind. So yeah, tell me about a little bit about your experience. I know there's like honey in it, so you don't really get like a sugar crash. So I guess it helps with the taste, right?
Oh yeah, I actually like the taste. It has a little bit of bitterness from the matcha, but I really like matcha, and the honey adds a little sweetness. I have a sweet tooth, so it makes it go down pretty easily. And I originally used it for one project I had at work, and then I had a lot of web-based training that I had to do, a lot of compliance stuff, and I take that right after I have my cup of coffee, and it really keeps me alert and focused on what I have to remember for the assessments at the very end. So definitely
Oh,
try Magic Mind.
awesome. Cool. And then for our Yin Young listeners, you all get a special discount. If you go to magicmind.co/YNY and enter code YNY20 within 10 days of this podcast release, you can get up to 40% off a subscription. If you miss that time, that 10-day window, don't worry, you can still get 20% off a one-time purchase. All right. So thanks to Magic Mind for being our first sponsor and sponsoring this episode. So remember, magicmind.co/YNY and enter code YNY20. Info's in the description. But yeah, let's go ahead and go on to the episode. Yay. All right. Welcome back, Yin and Young listeners, to Yin and Young, the podcast. This is episode possibly, I think, should be 63 if we're on schedule. Awesome. Yay. And we are here joined with special guest Sam, Samantha or Sam? Would you have a preference? Sam Sakamoto. Yeah, Sam Sakamoto. Yay.
Yay.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So Sam and I met in Japan, actually, in Tokyo during quarantine for a program. I guess just to be safe, we'll say we'll leave it nameless, but let's just say it's an acronym, one of those acronym programs, like 3 letters.
Yeah, one of those programs.
One of those programs. You can probably figure it out if you Google it. But yeah, one of those programs where you come to, I guess, Japan and help teach English. And so I think that's only part of it. I think it's more of a cultural exchange. I think is like if you look at the mission, it's more like a cultural exchange, help spread the joy spread the love of Japan throughout the world. Like you go back to your home country, supposed to be like a Japaneseophile, I think is one of the aims. And also
cultural ambassador.
And cultural ambassador, and also share your culture as well. Primarily, coming from Western countries. So although there are some teachers from Philippines as well that come. And but anyways, right. So that's how. So we met in quarantine. I think we had there was like a social hour or something that we met at. They had it was like social 15 minutes, like. Oh, it was like, yeah, because it's during COVID, right? So we can't hang out more than 15 minutes. We have to wear masks. And yeah, and they're like, okay, we'll let you hang out, but only 15 minutes, and make sure you hand sanitize. And so we're just like, boom, boom, hi, how's it going? Oh, what's your Instagram? Blah, blah, blah. And then we have to.
Was that indoors? Was it indoors?
We have to do everything inside the hotel. You can't leave the hotel, right? So one good thing about
in quarantine, right?
So we're in quarantine, right? So the quarantine is basically, just quick stories. Like we have to quarantine for 14 days, but during that time we can do we have to do a bunch of training, and then where they let us leave the rooms. Actually, it's not recommended, but they say if you need to, you can leave the room. There's a laundry room, and there was like a a top floor had like a convenience store that was open like 2 hours in the morning ish, I think, and then 2 hours at night, or like an hour. Yeah. And
It was the
then
highlight of the day.
that's the highlight of the day. Yeah. And there's a
Yeah.
microwave on the top floor. Yeah.
It almost
Shit,
sounds like
right.
prison. That it's like these small little hours that you're allowed to leave the room and see each other, like just our social hour for 15 minutes, and then you can have like this, this little commissary, or not commissary, but a
Right.
convenience store for like certain hours of the day. Was that how you felt it was for you, Sam?
Yeah, it was a little bit like that. Like I really looked forward to using the microwave upstairs because that's how I met people. That's how I
Right.
met
Yeah.
a few people from our program. Was just standing by the microwave and be like, oh, like, what's happening? Um, but yeah, it was super weird. I feel like such a long time ago now, honestly,
Right.
too. There was
Yeah.
also like a kind of like I don't want to say a major earthquake, but there was quite a big earthquake during this
Yeah.
too. And on Japan's scale, it was described as a disaster event. So that was a little frightening as well.
But
Yeah, because
you're no longer with the
yeah.
program, Sam?
I'm not. So I only did 1 year.
Oh,
I
Mm.
actually broke contract. So that's something we can also get into if you want. Not like just not to talk ill of the program, but just my experience was kind of different than most people's, I think.
oh
Okay.
no.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let's start with where you grew up, and we covered how you guys met, and
Okay.
what interested you in going back to Japan to like do this culture exchange.
So I'm a quarter Japanese, and
Okay.
my family is very Americanized, we don't do a lot of traditional Japanese things in our household. The Japanese heritage is on my grandpa, or it's on my dad's side. My
Right.
grandpa was full Japanese, and he was born in Hawaii. So I'm technically third generation, I think. My great grandparents were born in Japan.
Yes.
Mm.
So we've had like little, there are little bits of like Japanese. It's more so like the Japanese like attitude, I guess, or demeanor that shows up in our family and it's trickled down even to me. And so that was really interesting going back to Japan. To circle back though, I wanted to go there because of my family and because of that heritage and wanting to connect with those roots.
What
Um,
is it?
Mm.
What is this demeanor that you're talking about? 'Cause I'm fascinated by that. Like,
that's not a good way of describing it. Like, not like that sounds negative, but more so like just the general way in which my family acts and conducts itself, like I feel like is very traditionally Japanese in that like
oh,
we're very quiet and like you don't really talk about your feelings. It's more like,
hmm,
keep things under the rug kind of thing.
yeah,
And that
Mm.
indirectness that is so like essential to Japanese uh culture, I guess, and society.
right.
So yeah, it was very interesting to go back to Japan and see like, oh, see so many similarities, even though I'm only a quarter Japanese.
That's very interesting because like my mom she basically grew up in Japan, so even though she's Chinese, she's more or less Japanese,
Mm.
and I understand that outlook and the way you do things, but being with my wife who is not Japanese, that kind of gets like stamped out. She just like, hey, that is not how we do things. I cannot read your mind. You gotta like tell me what's going on because
Hmm.
that's not gonna fly. And
Hmm.
I'm surprised that your mom didn't do that to your dad or have that conversation. I'm sure they might have had that conversation, but it's interesting that it trickled down to you and from like your dad. By the way, you're fourth generation technically.
Oh, fourth. Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
because like Nisei is like the first generation born in America.
Oh, your
Nisei is
Okay.
like
grandparents, right?
third
Yeah.
gen,
Okay.
and then Sansei is third generation, fourth generation. So like the first generation that's
Oh.
born here is considered Nisei. That's why they have Nikkei week. You're American
Oh,
born, yeah, Nisei.
okay.
Technically,
Mm.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure
Yonsei, I
that's the way it
guess.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your Yonsei. But yeah, that's interesting to me that because your let's see, your dad is half, so your grandmother would have been Caucasian or not Japanese,
Correct.
and then your mom is not Japanese. So I'm surprised that they went along with the program of
They went along.
expressing feelings, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Because my wife is like, no.
yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, like my grandma is also very much ironically, she's also very similar in that regard. Just
She
because
German?
no, just by nature of like her family, she's very
Okay.
like quiet and reserved and doesn't like talk much about her feelings. And so it just kind of it worked, her and my grandpa.
Right.
And like my parents are a different story. My parents are divorced, so maybe it just didn't work out. I don't know, but like um but yeah, I think my grandma and my grandpa just ended up being a good match for each other in that regard.
Mm,
Because I
Yeah.
feel like the
so
Germans are like that. So I was like,
the Germans.
your
Yeah.
grandmother German. I only say that because I went to Germany once and they didn't talk about things. And I saw my younger cousin, we were in the park and she was running around and she like zigzagged and caused this lady to crash on her bike. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And my aunt was there and she's like, no, just walk away. Just keep on walking. It's okay. I was like, are we not going to address the elephant in the room? She's like, just
Mm,
walk away.
this was in
Huh.
Germany or
Germany, in Hamburg. I don't know if that was
interesting.
like specific to us or if it's specific to the German culture or what have you. I don't know. That's
Hmm.
why I said.
So Sam, for your Caucasian, I guess, ancestry, like where does it trace its roots, I guess?
So on my mom's side, or on both sides, there's like a lot of like um, Irish, some Spanish, and Scottish. My grandma is
Hmm.
definitely Scottish.
Oh,
Those are the three
really?
that, yeah.
Cool.
So what
And
part of Japan were you stationed in?
So I was in Nara. So
Okay. Oh, nice.
for people listening who don't know where Nara is, it's like next to Wakayama, Mie, and Osaka and Kyoto. So it's nice
mm,
because I was like an hour from Osaka and Kyoto. So kind of similar to OC, like a bit like not that Nara is similar to OC, but just like you're kind of outside of the hustle and bustle and you can like easily go into the city if you want to, which is really nice. Um,
right.
yeah.
And it's famous for Nara Park and the deer there. And there's like the big Buddha, the huge Buddha.
Buddha.
Right,
Yeah.
Budaiji.
Daiji, or
Did
yeah.
you do all the touristy things? Like I've been there, but did you do it while you're there?
I did. I mean, I went to Nara Park quite a bit, Todaiji a few times. But mostly just like I loved wandering around Kyoto. Like I have such a soft spot for Kyoto. So I
Mm,
tried to use all of my extra time there, just wandering around.
nice.
Yeah.
So
James,
as far
did
as
you go?
What was
I
that?
Did you?
actually met up who me?
Yeah, James.
Oh,
Did you
so
go
I
to
met up with
Nara?
her in Nara. Yeah, I met up with Sam in
Hmm.
Nara. We got like a pizza at this like really friendly pizza restaurant. Um, like they would like so they serve us and they're like, oh, where you from? Oh, you're from America? Cool. Here, sign this. Like there's this book where like people from all around the world sign this book. And there was like one person saying like, oh, I think I'm going to propose to the person here, or something like that. I think you put it on your Instagram, I
Yeah.
remember something like, yeah. So we're like, whoa. So we read that, and then they served food, and then they came back with like, hey, would you like this travel book? Like, okay, cool. Hey, they kept coming back. Hey, would you like this a drawing that we made for you? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I have like 4 of those drawings now because I went there a few times since so I
Yeah.
kind of gave them to family members. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do with all these. The funny
Oh,
thing
right.
about
Yeah.
that book though is what I wrote in it was like I'm a huge football fan and a huge Rams fan.
Oh,
And it
Okay.
was like
Yeah.
halfway through the season and I was like the LA Rams are going to win the Super Bowl this year and they did. So like it's
Yeah.
documented in that book in Nara.
Nice. So yeah. So we went, we met up in Nara, hanged out, we saw some deer, talked about, I talked about anime and stuff, and yeah. But yeah, so Sam, like as far as growing up, and you grew up in Tustin area or OC area, or
In the OC area, in Orange / Tustin area. Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Have you
I
ever
have some
been down
family.
here?
Yeah, I have some family that grew up in, or like they moved there when they were kids. And they moved to Irvine from
Okay.
East Coast. Yeah. So I visited Irvine quite a bit actually during my college years to see them. Yeah, so sometimes we go to Tustin or Spectrum. Yeah, Irvine Spectrum. Yeah.
Spectrum, nice.
Yeah. So you grew up in a pretty fairly diverse-ish area, I guess, or
Right.
Was
Yeah.
it not?
It's
at
very
the
diverse. I
okay.
mean, I would say like LA is much more diverse than Orange County is, but I don't know. Something that struck me about Japan is like when I went over there, I didn't. So it's actually my first time traveling abroad. I had never been abroad before going to Japan this past year.
Uh-huh.
So I had never really thought about like the homogenous quality of their population. Like it's all just Japanese people, and I'm not
Yeah.
used to that here. And just like in the States in general, that's a pretty normal thing. You see people, a bunch of different races, and you go there and it's like, wow. I didn't expect to get all the stares that I did. That was a bit jarring at first. Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, if you go to like the middle of America, maybe you might be more homogenous.
Right.
But
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
Japan, even I went to China when I was a kid, and even when in China, we look different because we dress differently. And I got those
Yeah.
stares regardless. So,
Right.
Yeah.
and I look like them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I also think body language is a big thing too. Yeah, like but yeah, I think if you have that plus you're like white passing, then yeah, that's probably like even more of like, oh, gaijin,
Right.
Yeah, foreigner, yeah. But yeah, so
Yeah.
growing up in what were some of your like hobbies, passions growing up? Like were you always interested in like I know you're interested in writing, stuff like that.
Yeah, I've always been a big sports kid. I played a ton of different sports when I was growing up. Like I played soccer, basketball, ice hockey. I
Wow.
played football, track. I was a big sports person, still am. And so now I do rock climbing,
Oh
bouldering,
yeah.
and which I also did in Japan. But mainly focused on writing. I write fiction, and I'm currently in the process of applying to MFA programs. So we will see how that goes. But my writing is mostly like literary fiction, so just like slice of life kind of stuff. But right now I'm working on a novel idea that was taken from my experiences in Japan partly.
Oh, nice.
Are you going to MFA for screenwriting or playwriting, or are you going to go for
fiction writing?
Fiction. Oh.
Yeah.
What is the top school? Like you're like, oh, if I could get in there.
I would say my dream schools are probably either Michigan or Texas. Those are really good programs.
Oh,
like
or
Austin,
Cornell.
I guess, or
Austin, yeah.
Okay, Cornell. Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have
So we'll see.
do you have any favorite authors that you were reading when you were like growing up, I guess, or you got into to reading and writing more like college or something?
I started getting really into it when I was in high school. Like most kids who are into writing, like Solinger and Vonnegut and those guys were probably like they really got me into interested in fiction. But now my favorite authors, I mean, everyone loves him, but like David Foster Wallace is one of my faves. I also love Kazuo Ishiguro, if you guys know him.
Never Let Me Go. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, that's a sad one. Yeah.
I love like Ocean Vuong's poetry.
Oh yeah.
He's really good. I'm looking at my books. Yeah. Ben Lerner. I don't know if these are more obscure names, but those are my favorites right now.
You have any favorite Japanese authors?
Japanese authors. I like Yukio Mishima.
Oh, that
I
guy.
love Ishiguro, but he's technically British. So I
Right,
mean, he's like from the UK. I love Murakami, but I kind of am ambivalent about him.
As a
Yeah.
person?
No, not as a person, just his writing. Like
Okay.
it can. Have you read any of his books?
I tried reading Kafka by the Shore and I didn't get through it.
Yeah, it's a surreal one. Yeah. I read that one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just, I think it's the fact that there are the same elements in every book, and it's just, I don't know. There's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk ill about Murakami, but
all the Murakami fans will come after you. Yeah.
yeah, right. I don't want them
Yeah,
sliding into my DMs like, hey.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, what's up? Yeah, I for me, I like Norwegian Wood, which is like his probably least Murakami-esque book, like less surreal.
I love that book. Yeah.
Yeah, that book I'm a huge fan of, which it's funny because it's like his least surreal book. He does like magical realism, surrealism very often, like Kafka on the Shore and other ones. But okay, interesting. Yeah, I was funny because I was looking up, like I heard about Mishima. I think I read the Temple of the Golden Pavilion a long time ago. I barely remember it, but I was just looking up because my girlfriend, she mentioned how she's kind of afraid of that guy. So I looked him up. Mishima, yeah, Yukio Mishima, like him as a person, he's like a scary dude. So I was like, okay, I've heard of him. I've heard like he did some like crazy suicide. So I looked into the details of his life, and I'm like, oh god, this guy's intense. Yeah, he's like he's a far right Japanese nationalist, and I guess at the end, the last day of his life, he stormed like some this Japanese garrison self-defense force, and gave this like 10-minute speech of how Japan should reclaim its glory or something, and then he committed seppuku. Yeah,
he did.
Great.
Yeah. Another recommendation is Akutagawa. I think that's his name. Akutagawa.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got some great stories too.
Interesting. Cool. But anyway, sorry for that tangent. But yeah. So then for high school, I guess, were you already, so you've never been to Japan then, huh? Were you like, when did your interest in Japan like start formulating, I guess? Or, yeah.
So I've always been interested in Japanese culture, but it didn't really start to like take off, I would say, until, I mean, I don't know. I really just never had, up until college, and even in college, I didn't really have the confidence to travel to Japan just because of the language barrier, and because I was thinking about studying abroad maybe, and I was like, I don't speak any Japanese, so it'd be pretty difficult. But then I met two friends when I was managing a coffee shop, and they both did our program, and they told me about it. And I was like, well, did you guys both know Japanese going into it? And they said, no, we didn't know any Japanese. And one of the guys actually hadn't even left the country before.
Pause. Sorry, I got package came. Hold on.
Okay, sounds good.
すいません。はい、ちょっと待ってください。
So what are you doing now?
So now I'm going to be working at Trader Joe's,
nice.
which I was working at Trader Joe's before I did the program. And so now I'm going to go back there and just work there until I hear back from grad schools. So exciting stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. So right now I'm just working on a novel excerpt to send to these schools, because you need to send like a 40-page manuscript.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of a lot.
Like intense. Yeah. 40 pages.
Yeah. And they're really competitive programs. Like only like 1 to 2% of people get in. So So if I don't get in, I'm also applying to a master's in teaching program to start teaching high school English.
Oh, cool.
So whichever program takes me, I will gladly attend.
I do want to talk about breaking the contract. That's very interesting.
Yes,
It's quite the
definitely.
teaser.
Yeah. So sorry, what did I miss?
Oh, I was just
We're
talking about
just
what I'm
talking
doing
about-
now.
Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I caught a bit of that. Yeah, it's interesting in Japan, like there's some packages that you can just ask for them to leave, but then there's a lot of packages where you have to be present to sign for
Yep.
it.
Mhm.
What
It's
if
just
you're
like
at work?
so, what's that?
What if you're at work?
So you have to reschedule. So you'll get a slip and then you have to sign like, okay, pick an evening time. So like, yeah, or you have to set up the time for when the package comes for after work. So it's kind of like you
Oh.
have to plan your life around packages. Did you have this issue too, Sam? Or
Yeah, it kind
yeah,
of annoyed me sometimes. Like I understand why they do that, but it's also didn't make any sense to me because like they don't want people to steal your packages, but in Japan no one steals anything. So it's
dude,
like
yeah,
it's okay.
like America, like okay, I get, yeah, America, like I've had my brothers had packages stolen. I've had a package, yeah,
Mm.
so but yeah, Japan's safe, so like yeah, I don't know. Anyways, okay, so yeah, I guess let's talk about, so like the interest of Japan, you've always had that, and then going into college. So for college you studied communications.
I said communications and I minored in screenwriting. So I was
Ah,
initially interested in screenwriting. And I went to Chapman, which is a pretty good program for TV and film. And
right.
then through some of my classes, I realized that screenwriting isn't the medium that I really enjoyed the most. So, because I was wanting the writing to be like somewhat maybe lucrative, and I was like, well, screenwriting might be like a happy in the middle, but I'm like, no, if I'm gonna write, like I just want to like do what I'm really passionate about. Like, so decided on fiction and the rest is history. Um,
Mm,
but and I didn't get to study abroad in college, which I'm sad about. But
so
Why
then I
didn't
guess
you
this,
enter this program?
but yeah, was this kind of
yeah,
like what, were you in like Japanese clubs or language exchange programs or taking Japanese during college or?
no. So I during college I actually didn't take any Japanese language classes or culture classes. Um, so after I graduated, the pandemic started, and I had thought
Yeah.
already about applying to the program. So I was like, well, I've got nothing else to do, so I'm just gonna like learn Japanese like online via community college classes. So I took 3 of them. Um, and that helped because I knew hiragana and katakana before coming to Japan. I knew very, very basic Japanese, but still like I didn't functionally know even basic Japanese when I got there. But it was a good like uh, it was a good like basic like foundational uh, you know learning, I guess.
Did you speak any other language before this, or do your parents speak any other languages, or?
Not really.
Uh,
I mean, I took 6 years of Spanish, but I can only speak pretty basic Spanish.
I took yeah, I took the high school. Was that in high school or
Yeah, in high school and college.
college? Yeah, I took
Wow.
French in high school and totally forgot most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then I guess it sounds like maybe because of that, maybe that feeling of, oh, I didn't do a study abroad program, maybe that attracted you to like go to teach in Japan, possibly? Was that the impetus? And also like to find your roots that you mentioned? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had always wanted to live abroad at some point in my life. I knew it would be something that I would regret if I was older and I just hadn't pursued it. So Japan seemed like the best option for me because I'd be able to connect with those roots and also live abroad. So from meeting my friends who have done our program, that gave me confidence that like because they were talking about the support that our program gave, like So you're not just thrown out there on your own. Like you have support from the program. That gave me confidence to go over there. And yeah, so I applied and got in.
Cool. Yeah. How was your interview? Did you like it?
It was good. I mean, I was so nervous because so for our program, there is the possibility of having to do some kind of demo lesson, and I don't really have. I didn't really have any teaching experience aside from tutoring, so I was like, oh, if they asked me to do a demo lesson, that could be interesting. But yeah, just pretty like generic, situational questions that it wasn't too bad.
It was on
How was
Zoom,
your?
right? Or
Yeah. How was yours?
So I was technically in Taiwan at the time. Well, not technically. I was in Taiwan at the time because I was in the States, right? And I was just like, I covered. Dan and I've talked about this in the previous podcast, but I was like, you know what? The States is getting pretty hairy with this COVID situation. I recently got a Taiwanese passport. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go to Taiwan, chill out for a few months, and learn some, work on my brush up on my Mandarin. And so I did that, and then I had applied to the program prior to that, because I always, in a similar vein, I wanted to live in. I've always wanted to live in Japan. I have lived in Taiwan. I've lived in Australia before, but like Japan was always on my bucket list because I had been learning the language. I grew up with Evangelion and Cowboy Bebop, which were like huge influence. Yeah, seriously. Yeah. And so then I got the interview. I was like, oh crap, yeah, cool. So I try to make it was like super early in the morning. It was like 4 a.m. for me, and I just I lit up the whole room, so it's not like so it didn't look like it was like 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm saying goodbye to my girlfriend. Yeah, and then so yeah, it was decent. A thing I was nervous about. I was pretty confident because I had some teaching experience, and I'm older than most applicants of this program by like almost 10 years. I'm in my late 30s, so I'm pretty confident about shooting the shit, for a better phrase, like because I've been through that wheelhouse.
Wait, James, I did not know that you were in your late 30s. What?
I'm in my late 30s, and Dan's even older, so yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Asians don't raisin, yeah. And I was nervous about the Japanese section. Like there was a section where I had to speak like some Japanese with them. Did you have that or?
I did, and I blew it. I didn't know any Japanese really. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't count against you though. So that's why I feel okay about it.
I think, what I think it is? I think it's more like, how do you deal with that situation? Because it's going to come up in the program where people are speaking Japanese to you. So like, I guess, were you able to turn it into like a humorous sort of like, oh, I'm sorry, guys, I can't,
Well, like, I mean, I knew enough Japanese to be like yoku wakarimasen, imasen.
Sumimasen, I don't understand. Yeah, wakarimasen. Yeah. I could fake the accent, like kind of like the Japanese accent. If I don't know what it is, I'll just like say in katakana eigo, like katakana English, like
yeah.
Sumimasen, yeah.
Did you know much Japanese going into the program?
Not really, no. I did take about 2 semesters in community college. So I basically covered katakana, hiragana, and basic kanji, but I understand kanji from Mandarin, which I speak conversationally fluently. And then so I so I have like a very basic grasp, but if you want me to construct like have a long form conversation like this, that's not going to happen. But I know in the interview, like I would just like, sumimasen, moikai onegaishimasu. Say it one more time, please. So I would get the mannerisms. I think they found that kind of like, oh, he at least he understands the Japanese politeness, stuff like that. Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So then after that it was quarantine, and then how was the like actual starting the program? How was that? Was there culture shock for you? Like so fast forwarding. So we did the quarantine. We talked about that a bit. our prison sentence ish. And then actually getting out, I know for me the first couple of days was like, oh my god, air, fresh air. And then it was like a whirlwind for me that first couple of like week is just getting settled, buying like futons for and like setting up my place. But yeah, how was your experience?
So I didn't really feel a ton of culture shock, surprisingly. I was just like, my jaw was dropped because I've never been out of the country before. So like here I am just like on a bus in Tokyo, like what is this? But it was the coolest. And like the really cool thing about my experience there is like, especially not having known any of the language, you're reduced to the status of a baby. Like you can't talk, you can't understand people, you can't read, and it really humbles you. And I feel like most people or everyone should have to go through this, I feel like, because it humbles you in such a good way, I feel like. But it was a whirlwind for me as well. I mean, so my supervisor for the program, we're all like assigned a supervisor, and mine, he didn't speak any English at all, and and it was also his first time working with a person in our program, so he had never. These people usually have other jobs as well. Like I don't know how your situation is, James, but like
same, yeah.
He also did other administrative tasks, so like he wasn't super familiar with what was required to help me, and so that was interesting. Like I didn't expect I didn't expect the lack of English that there was in Japan, because like I think we think of, like, especially in America, we think of Japan as like very efficient, very modern, and like they have all of it together there, and that's just, they don't speak much English there, which was very, very surprising. So that definitely gave me some kind of like, I don't know, a kind of shock, I guess, for the first few weeks.
Yeah, it's kind of like that's a good metaphor. Like you feel like a child, like, well, like you're trying to get people, get food, or some have a conversation, but like it's just you can't express any. Yeah, I think that I've had that feeling before when I first lived in Taiwan like 10 plus years ago. So going over it again was just like, oh, this again. This is tough. Yeah.
But
going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Grocery store.
Oh, going to the grocery store, that was something that was terrifying for me at first, because a lot of the Japanese food like is very different from what we have here, and plus the labels are all in Japanese, so you're like, what is this? Like so at first things can be pretty difficult, but I don't know, after a few months I was okay, I think.
Yeah, so that was my question, is like how long did it take before you actually felt comfortable doing all these even basic stuff like shopping? You said a few months, but like just wandering around on your own, did you feel confident from the very beginning to go to Kyoto or Osaka? Or
yeah, I wouldn't even say it took me a few months to be able to do all that stuff on my own. Like I thankfully had a coworker who he also was an English teacher at our board of education, and he's like much older than ALTs usually are. I think he was almost 60. He was from Nepal. And so he helped me a lot. He helped me so much, and like teaching me how to do the grocery store, and like just taking me around and helping me with things that my supervisor wasn't really able to help me with. And also like my best Japan friend, shout out to Jenny from our program, who James, I don't know if you know Jenny, but she took me under yeah, she took me under her wing and was like, okay, like here is the, like the IC card for the train. She's like, okay, like here's how you get this. So you just scan this every time you go on the train. Just like, just you find people that will that will be really kind and that are willing to help you. Um, and that's what helped me. I mean, I think the thing that I was blown away by when I got to Japan was just how like astoundingly nice everyone is there. Like, you know, I didn't speak much Japanese at all, and I got lost in the train like one of my first days, and I was panicking because like my phone was dying and everything. And I went up to this old lady and I was like, where is this? And she did not even know what the word where meant. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh no. But she took me to the train master. Is that what he's called?
Yeah.
Like,
The-
and she took me
yeah.
over there and was just like, this girl is lost, like, and helped me out. And she missed her train to help me. And like, I was like almost in tears, just like by how nice that was. Like, she went out of her way to help me. And those first few weeks, I had a lot of experiences like that, that really like gave me like a lot of affection for Japan and how willing they are to help you. Yeah.
And how was like and then the job itself, how was the like teaching experience for you? Because you've only done, so you mentioned you've done some tutoring before, like one-on-one tutoring, but so you're now in front of a class of, was it high school or junior high school?
So I did elementary and junior high school, and then some
Okay.
kindergarten sometimes.
Oh, so on the younger spectrum. Okay, got you. Yeah.
Yes. So I was very nervous for that because I've never been in front of a class before. But so with my situation, I was the like, you know, tape recorder, but I wasn't utilized very much, which was unfortunate, but also like helped me kind of get more used to like the day to day in the classroom. It would have been a little more difficult if I was just thrown in like, oh, teach a class right now.
Right.
But I loved teaching. So like when I would do the junior high school, I wasn't there as much, but I would get to teach my own class for the whole period, and I loved that. And so I think from that experience at those junior high schools, I really started to realize like I love teaching. And so that's why now I'm also applying to programs to eventually teach high school English, because it really solidified my love for teaching, I think. And the kids are so cute. I love working with the kids.
That's
They're
great.
so silly.
Yeah. And did you have like, so it sounds like you had multiple schools, right? So you had more than one junior high school, more than one okay. So
well, so for elementary and junior high schools, I think at one point I had 3, and then I had 4 because they kind of change around sometimes. But going back to what you were asking, like in regards to getting acclimated, I guess, to the school setting, the biggest shock for me, or the 2 biggest shocks for me, was one, like I expected, because we're assistant language teachers, so we're paired with a Japanese teacher who is the main English teacher.
right.
And you would expect that like they would know English, but a lot of the times in elementary or junior high school, even high school, sometimes they don't know very much English. And so you're having to coordinate, like talking about lesson plans with them. And it's sink or swim in regards to like picking up some Japanese so you can communicate with them. Luckily, my main teacher that I worked with, she was basically fluent in English, but the rest of them didn't know much at all. So that was a big shock. And then second, like when you don't think about this going into the program, but like, you know, I'm an assistant, so I'm going around like asking kids if they understand what's going on, but they don't understand the question, do you understand? So you need to like learn these little bits of Japanese to use in the classroom so that the kids are more comfortable, because that makes so much sense. Like I wouldn't be as comfortable if someone's like asking me, do you understand in Spanish or whatever, and I'm just a kid. So learning those things helped a lot with the kids warming up to me, I think.
That's cool. So it sounds like you found it reignited or it lit your passion for teaching or your love for the craft of teaching or pedagogy, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah.
Nice. Cool.
Because just the simple, like, there was one instance in which I like this one kid really was not, the student wasn't understanding what the word on meant. And so just from teaching him what the word on meant, like he just got it. Like I saw it in his eyes. He was like, oh, okay. And just like that feeling when you're teaching somebody and they're like, oh, okay. It's such a, it's a very like thrilling feeling, and I don't know, I like it.
Yeah. No, I totally, yeah. Like when you see that light up in their eye, like,
It's very
oh,
satisfying.
it's like, oh, yes, get it, you got it, you know? So, so the actual experience itself sounds like you took some time getting acclimated to. Yeah, I was surprised by that. I'm lucky in the sense I teach high school, and a lot of my teachers, for the most part, can speak in like conversationally. We can chat in English, but I had one or two where it's like, yeah, no, I was just like, oh
Yeah.
wow, he's an English teacher. He or she is an English teacher. I'm like, how like. I think in the States, we're spoiled in the sense that we're a very multicultural, diverse country for the most part in the metropolitan cities. So like that wouldn't fly. Like if you had like a basically not like a Spanish teacher that couldn't speak Spanish in a California high school, dude, like there'd be kids be like, bro, I speak better Spanish, like all the Hispanic kids would be like, come on, you're joking, right? Yeah. But in Japan, yeah, you can get away with it. You can.
Well, let me ask you this: Are they very good in grammar? Are they like, it's like reading and writing is what they're focused on? Are they really good at that? And the conversational parts are the ones, or pronunciation is where you guys come in?
Correct. So I mean, we are,
Yeah.
at least for me, when I was in the elementary and junior high school setting, I was most utilized for pronunciation purposes.
Right.
But it seems like the goal in Japan in regards to like English education is just like more so to like pass tests and fulfill requirements.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of actually like getting into groups and speaking English, yeah.
I try to do that more for my students, is getting them into groups and speaking, because I think underutilized in the other classes. But yeah, sorry, Dan, we're gonna say.
No, I think that's a very common thing. I've all the Japanese people I've spoken to, they all know all the grammar. They probably have better understanding of grammar, but pronunciation is like something that is very challenging, because that's why they have this program for you to be there to explain or to show or demonstrate what the pronunciation is. But then a lot of Japanese people actually understand a lot of English, reading and writing wise.
Yeah.
But they're so shy and unwilling to practice because they don't want to make that mistake and be embarrassed, that I don't think they're willing to risk that embarrassment by speaking and practicing if they can't get it right the first time.
Right. Yeah.
Right. They're very shy about their abilities. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll find like one or two of them who are like outliers who will be willing to try it out and just they're probably going to be gregarious anyways, and they're going to just try it and just do it for laughs. But I think for the most part, most of the people I've met, I mean, they learn stupid stuff like, this is a pen, and then that's the kind of like English that they learn.
Right.
So, you're right. They are very shy about their abilities. A lot of them know a lot more than they let on.
Yeah.
But also, like, to in their defense, like, there's not a lot of opportunities in Japan to practice speaking English. So I found a lot of people, especially like service workers, when they would see me, they would like start speaking English and get kind of like excited to speak English. And because like here, I mean, in Southern California, there quite a few opportunities to speak Spanish if you want to practice it, but
Yes.
not the same kind of thing in Japan.
No.
Yeah. Are you gonna keep up with Japanese while you're back in the States and gonna still practice or?
Yeah, I mean, I actually am kind of in search of some kind of like language exchange group
There,
over here. So if you guys know of anything, let me know.
there
Yeah,
was
there's like
one in Little Tokyo. I know that my friend Michael, who lives in Japan right now, he was like in some sort of conversational thing in Little Tokyo. But
yeah.
Oh,
I don't know about which, your undergrad, but my undergrad had Japanese language learners or
mm,
English language learners from Japan, and they wanted a conversational partner, and then they would pair you up if that's what you wanted to do.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
ooh, yeah, I would love that. Yeah, I'm looking to keep up because it's just I have such a strong, not really that strong, like a strong foundation to really build upon
Right.
in the coming years. And I don't want to lose the Japanese either.
Yeah. Cool. So then
But
for the
I
program, yeah, go ahead,
go
Dan.
ahead. No, James, you go first because I
Oh, I was just
already
gonna
know.
I was just gonna move like so for the program. I guess yeah, we've talked about it briefly, but what led to it sounded like you had a decent experience. Was there some other experience? So what led to like breaking contract, I guess?
Okay.
That's what I
Why don't
want
we
to know.
just we can just jump to that. Yeah. I mean, so it sounds like looking at your Instagram, it looks like you've had a very enjoyable experience in Japan. So whenever we have Nenkyu, which is like paid days off. So I think compared to other teachers like or other jobs, I was talking to my girlfriend. She's Japanese, my girlfriend, and she's like, "Wow, you get that many days off." So like, it's a pretty like our program is a pretty good deal as far as days off. So the pay's not great. So this is just me speaking from experience, and then I want to hear from you. But like, yeah, the pay's not the best, but comparative to other college graduates, like recent college grads in Japan, it's competitive, and
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, I know I personally have some frustrations with the actual job itself, but overall, yeah, I think it's manageable for me, and
Mhm.
also for like the vacation that we get and stuff like that, and then also the opportunity, which is I think the main draw is the opportunity to explore Japan, practice the language. But for
Yeah.
you, like it sounds like you had a decent experience, but what made you want to like leave or maybe earlier?
So so for our program, so usually what happens is people arrive at the end of July, and then in around December, they ask you if you want to stay for another year.
Right.
But because of COVID, our cohort went in September, and then we were asked like early December, do you want to recontract? So you've only been there for like a few months.
Yeah.
And so I said yes. And I really didn't start to second guess my decision until probably March. And the main reason is just because of my specific situation with my Board of Education and schools. Just because the way in which my schools utilized me was kind of unfortunate in that so most people in our program, when they're not needed in class, they are desk warming, which is very common. But I didn't really
Yeah.
have any desk warming. I would be doing like 5 classes a day, but I wasn't. So I would come to class, 5 classes, and I would stand on the side, and the teacher would teach, and they wouldn't have me participate in the class at all. So it would be kind of like 5 hours of just like staring at the wall, which was really, I like to be engaged at work. And so it was really difficult because I was bored. And
Yeah.
I would have really, especially because of my writing, I was very attracted to the program because I knew of this desk warming, and I was like, oh, okay, like I could, get some teaching experience and also do writing in all this downtime. But I wasn't able to
Yeah.
do any writing. So it's kind of hindering my ability to write, which was kind of frustrating, especially when I was just coming to class and just stare at the wall.
Yeah.
And so there was that. It was just a lot of logistical things that made my situation kind of unfeasible. Like for instance, so I was I'm not gonna like say the specific city that I was in, I guess, but so most are placed or they're working in the city in which they're placed. So they're living like usually pretty close to their schools or school. And I was sent to live in a city that's about 40 minutes away from where I was working. So it was like an hour and 10-minute commute because I would
Wow.
take the train for a half hour to, the city that I worked in, and then I would walk to the city hall building for like 20 minutes, and then I would drive like kind of backwards to the schools. And so just all these little things kind of added up and made the lifestyle not really feasible for me. And so it was that. Yeah, it was mostly the job. Honestly, I loved being in Japan. Like I'm so sad that I had to leave when I did, because I would have loved to stay another year. It's not like it's not like a big like falling out situation kind of happened, but it was just more so like the day to day of my situation wasn't great.
Yeah.
But I loved the students, and being able to interact with them was like the highlight of my day.
Hey,
Yeah.
are you okay? Just to preface, are you okay talking about this or publicly? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah.
That's fine.
Now that you're out of the program, so yeah, well, what?
Or not. I'm a program alumni. Sorry.
I can edit that out. Let me see.
Okay.
What do you miss most
Yeah.
about Japan?
What I miss most, the food.
Yeah.
The food, yeah, because it's so much cheaper than it is here, and such better
Yes. Yeah.
quality. I mean, like in the US, it's more like quantity over quality, right? It's like, oh, I got like enough to have dinner and lunch the next day. Like, what a deal. But there, it's like they're so, they're so tuned into like precision and like
Yes.
and making the best quality product that they can possibly make you. And I really became a foodie when I went to Japan. So is the food, and also like being able to travel so much. Like another part of the breaking contract was I didn't really like find a great community, honestly, for our program. Like I had my my friend Jenny, who I hung out with quite a bit. But so from March to July, I took a lot of solo trips, which was awesome. But you also just like get to a point where you want to enjoy these things with other people,
Yeah.
But Japan's also an awesome place to solo travel, especially as a woman, because it's very safe.
Is Jenny also from America?
She's actually from California as well. She was born in Taiwan. So like, James, I feel like you guys would have stuff to talk about, because she's lived in Taiwan as well. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Maybe we can connect after. Yeah. I think.
Was there anything you missed while you were living in Japan that you were like, oh, I wish I could get like a taco or something like that?
Oh, there are so many things. The biggest thing that comes to mind is onsen. I really grew to love onsen.
Like a hot springs, or like
yeah.
Going to a hot spring.
Yeah, as most Americans are probably. Like I was pretty. So for anybody listening, like onsen is Japanese hot springs. They're kind of like similar to a spa, where you go outside and there's like usually like these beautiful like rocks and everything, and you can't wear any clothes. You have to shower beforehand. and that's pretty like jarring to an American person at first. We're not used to that,
And you
but I
can't have
grew to really.
tattoos.
You usually can't have tattoos, yeah.
Usually, yeah.
And I grew to really love it. Like it was, I went to an onsen town in Hyogo. It was awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's I think the onsen culture here is amazing. Like it's so cool. Like you'll see like
Yeah.
people, families, like this, whole family of naked people just like going to the onsen, like yeah. Whereas like in
Yeah.
America there might be like, oh wait, you should they should cover up, or like, but inside, once you're inside the onsen, it's like whoosh. But obviously it's gendered. It's like there's the men's side, there's a female side, but like I would see like I saw some dads bring their like infant daughters, and that was like totally fine to like bring your infant daughter into the male onsen. I was just like, oh, interesting. Yeah.
It's super cool. Onsen is awesome. I miss the food. I miss onsen. The traveling.
Food is
there's so
cheaper,
many
but
things.
supermarkets food, if you buy groceries, it's more expensive. No,
That's true. Most things are more expensive at the grocery
especially
store, I
fruit.
think.
The fruit is like the most
fruit.
yeah. I looked at a watermelon. I was like, wow, I could buy like I could buy like 3 Big Mac meals with this watermelon or something like that, or 5.
But they're beautiful.
The watermelons are beautiful. Yeah.
I've seen like a pack of like 2 peaches for like $30 before. Like pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like
oh,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I got so for Christmas in Japan last year, one of our Japanese friends gave me 2 large apples wrapped in newspaper, and I was like, all right, I get some apples, cool. And they were the best apples I've ever had in my life, and I was like, this is the best Christmas present I've gotten. Like I missed fruit so much.
Yeah.
These monster apples that so delicious.
And they're probably like
perfect.
$50 or something, or
honestly, probably.
That's crazy. Yeah.
There is I was watching this NHK program. There is a all you can eat strawberry farm outside of Tokyo. And you just like pay a certain fee and you go in, and then the strawberries are beautiful out there. And then they will have like different varieties of the strawberries. And you could just like, I don't know what the fee was, but you just go and pay and you just like go crazy.
Ooh.
Something to
good.
note next time you go back to Tokyo. I want to do that.
Tokyo. Yeah, that sounds good. Strawberry. Okay, Tokyo. I might look into that.
I also want to go have the raw egg over rice. There's like a restaurant that for like 1,200 yen, you can do it like all you can eat. And then each egg is like, all the chickens are fed different feed. So they have like subtle differences in the egg flavor. Like one has like more yuzu flavor and one's like,
Wait, this is in LA?
No. Tokyo.
Oh. Okay.
If it was in LA, I'd be there already. You cannot eat eggs in America and not like risk salmonella.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sad thing. Oh, I miss the raw egg over rice. So good.
So top foods, Sam. What are some of your top go-to foods?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Especially since you are so close to Osaka. Osaka is like a food capital.
Well, actually, this is a controversial opinion of mine, but I'm not a huge fan of Osaka personally. I know a lot of people are. However, I didn't. Maybe I just didn't have the Osaka experience. I didn't really have great food there compared to other places, but maybe I was going to the wrong places. Probably was. But I usually went to Kyoto if I was going to one of those 2 cities. But the best food that I had was definitely either in Tokyo or in Sapporo, Hokkaido.
Oh, Hokkaido. Yeah.
I loved going to Hokkaido's. Awesome. So I mean, obviously sushi. I had like omakase sushi in Tokyo. At not Sushi Dai, but oh god, which place was it? Daiwa Sushi in the
Tsukiji?
It's the new one though. Because they relocated and they renamed it. I'm not sure what it is now. But I had to go there at like 6 a.m. to get sushi. And it was awesome. It was so good. So that was one of my favorite meals there. I had some really good tsukemen ramen in Tokyo. But honestly, just like the
That's the dipping
seafood, like
ramen, yeah.
yeah. I had like donburi, like just like some like sashimi over rice in Hokkaido, and it was like one of the best meals I've ever had. Um, I love soba. I grew to really love natto actually.
Oh,
Interesting.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, my girlfriend's trying to get me into it. I'm like, yeah,
this
anyways.
is really random, but like I started eating it for breakfast with spinach, and it really went together well. So I
Oh,
recommend that.
spinach, okay.
I love katsu-don. I
That's
love
the
all of it.
fried
Onigiri.
onigiri, yeah.
Mhm.
There
For our
is
listeners who don't speak Japanese, yeah, katsu-don that's the fried pork, right?
pork.
Pork
Yes.
over rice. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Onigiri is like rice balls. They
Yeah.
sell them in convenience stores, and
Which are great.
the highlight of my day right there. Onigiri.
Yeah.
Did you
It's
have
great. Like,
coffee while you were there
What was
in
that?
Japan? Coffee?
Oh
Have
yeah,
you
the
gone?
canned coffee.
No. Just like a Japanese coffee cafe. Have you gone
Oh
to a
yeah,
Kisaten and like
yeah.
the pour overs? I mean, as a barista or a former barista yourself, you're like, oh, have you tried like some of the coffee places?
Yeah, a few of my favorite coffee shops in the world are in Japan. Like, there was one coffee shop that I went to in Sapporo that was awesome. It was open until like 11 p.m. They had a lot of, pour over situations going on. I did a lot of writing
Miyakoshi?
there. What was it?
Miyakoshi? And Miyakoshi?
I don't know. I don't know what the name
Yeah.
of it was. I'll have to look it up.
Hmm.
I loved my favorite coffee shop I think ever was in Tokyo. It's called Fuglin. It's pretty popular. There's one in Shibuya and one in Asakusa. That's like my favorite place to hang out in Tokyo. There weren't a lot of coffee shops in Nara that I went to actually. But yeah, great coffee in Japan. And I started, so in the US, like Starbucks is just kind of like, but when I went to Japan, I was asking Japanese people like where do you like to drink coffee? I know Japan's not like a big coffee place, like they're more into tea. But everyone was like Starbucks. And I was like, really? Starbucks? And then like I went to the Japan Starbucks and I was like, oh my God, I love Starbucks now. Like the coffee is so good at their Starbucks. It's crazy. And all the desserts are just like beautiful. It's I
Were you
miss
let
my
down?
Starbucks.
Were you let down when you came back to the States and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go Starbucks? And I'm like, oh no, this is not.
I haven't been back to Starbucks. I can't go,
It's interesting. It's like everything in like all the American brands in Japan are just like better. Like McDonald's is way better. Like it tastes better. And they have like samurai mac. They have different like special flavors too. Different types of burgers, seasonal stuff. Yeah. And like I would see, I haven't been to Starbucks much here, but I would see lines out the door for Starbucks here in Japan. Like, yeah, it's crazy. So
yeah.
You can't do that here.
So now after the Japan experience, it looks like you're focusing on your writing now. You want to go applying to programs and stuff like that. You mentioned that you're working on maybe a mini project right now, or like do you want to talk about that a bit?
So it's still like it's an idea in progress still. But it's a novel idea. I've written, I don't know, like 20 pages of it. It takes place in Nara. And the basic idea was that there's this onsen that this guy gets into, and he's able to feel the feelings and think the thoughts of the other people who are getting into this specific bath.
Interesting.
And so that was it was originally going to be just a short story, but then I was thinking about, so the town that I was living in is known for goldfish scooping. It's like where the national goldfish scooping tournament is always held. And so there's kind of a goldfish scooping, like children's cult kind of thing going on. Like cult isn't the right word, but think like maybe like the group of kids in it, like, but they're goldfish scooping. And so it's all gonna like tie together. It's kind of hard to talk about because it's very early in stages, but
I'm a writer too, so I understand that. Like I'm always hesitant to talk about stuff that's still like amorphous, I guess, right?
Right.
Do you want to explain goldfish scooping?
Oh yeah, so I've done it once. So goldfish scooping, it doesn't sound very hard, right? Like you have you go into this place and there are different like square bucket kind of things with goldfish in them, and you would think, oh, it's just like a net, you just grab the fish, whatever, but it's actually not a net. It's like a handle that's connected to this, like, it's just like a flat piece of paper, honestly.
It's like, so it breaks so easily.
It breaks super easily, and I'm like, how am I going to get fish on this thing? And so you have to be very careful about how you're angling it and like how fast there's a lot of like, mechanics that go into the whole thing.
Did you get good at it?
I think in like 1 minute I had like 2 fish, so I was not good.
That's still pretty good. Still pretty good.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a couple minutes. I know I didn't do very well.
They used to do that in Nisei Week in Little Tokyo.
Oh really?
They stopped doing it. I don't know why.
How come?
I don't know. And then did you do the yo-yo? No, way before that. Did you do the Japanese yo-yo as well? At the Matsuris, they have one of the ones is goldfish scooping. Another one was like what they call the Japanese yo-yo, or that's what I used to call it. It's like a small balloon filled with a little bit of water with a rubber band, and it would go in a water circle, and you would have to. There's a hook tied to another paper string tied to a rod, and you would have to hook it up. And then if you didn't do it, the string would dissolve, and then the hook would just drop. So you see a bunch of hooks at the bottom. Yeah. And there's another one to catch eels. I never understood the eel one. I just saw a bunch of kids like standing in front of like a pit with like a bunch of eels with another paper string and hook and a stick. I don't know how that game works, but I was like, why would you want that? But I guess because I don't want to clean that thing. I don't know if their parents are cleaning it afterwards or whatever.
Yeah.
See, these are the things I miss about Japan. Just so wholesome, just catching the eels,
Yeah, catching eels, so wholesome. Yeah.
I think.
Did you miss the fireworks season?
Oh, Hanami, yeah.
I was there for Hanami. For fireworks season, I think I had left right before that. So I left July 20th. So I think right before that stuff was happening.
You could go to 7-Eleven and get a bunch of fireworks and go light them up at the park.
That's true. I could have. Is that really? Can you really do that? Like I didn't know.
I think it's frowned upon, but
I don't know. There was one summer when we went ghost chasing with a bunch of coworkers, and then to cap off the night, we went to 7-Eleven, got a bunch of fireworks, and we were lighting them up like at some random park.
Wait, so did you live in Japan as well, or were you just visiting?
I was just visiting. I got like a part-time job through my work at the time. The CEO was married to a Japanese woman whose father owned like a Japanese company, and she got me a job there for the summer. And then these coworkers said, "Hey, you want to go looking for ghosts with us?" I was like, "What?" They go, "Yeah, we're gonna go to all these haunted places, take pictures, and see if anything comes out of it." And that's what we did for like a Saturday night.
That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah. So I guess before we finish up, like about your for your writing and stuff, what is something that, so it sounds like you're writing fiction is a little bit surreal. Like, do you have like a certain kind of like what would you say are some of the like themes or things that you want to write about or talk about? Like kind of like your world perspective, I guess. Yeah. Are there things about culture? Are there things about human relationships you're trying to express? Yeah.
You know, I don't know specific themes. I mean, I guess like thinking of like all the stories that I've written, like childhood is something that comes up a lot. But honestly, when I try to write, I don't really have a theme or anything in mind. It's more so just like it's kind of like meta, but just writing where the story takes me and like not really thinking about, oh, I want to like, you know, say something about or say some kind of like social commentary or cultural commentary, like whatever. It's more so just like more like instinctual, just kind of like write wherever the story leads me, I guess, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to talk about themes. I don't know.
No, yeah.
A lot of it is very connected, heavily connected to childhood too, and my own experiences as well.
Like I guess I just went, yeah, so I just went to like a museum, the two, like the Mie Museum here, and yeah, I think there is I know there was the artist drew a lot of like childhood paintings or like pictures of kids and stuff like that. Is there something about maybe like creating fiction, writing fiction, or creating art in general? Is there a certain like what draws you to that? Is there a sort of childlike innocence to it, or there's a childlike wonder to like creation that you're drawn to, or it's just like it's fun? You know, like yeah.
I think a lot of it is honestly like a lot of it is like working out things about my own childhood through fiction and like learning, like, you know, writing and then kind of reading something and being and understanding maybe certain things about my childhood that I don't know, just from experience kind of like wasn't really seeing, but I'm now seeing from maybe like a fiction perspective, if that makes sense. But it's more so like a catharsis, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, was it hopefully it's not too personal, but is there something like what would be an example of something maybe you're trying to work out from childhood, I guess? Yeah. Was it did you have
well, in all of my stories that I've written, grief appears. I mean, my dad passed away when I was in high school, so that that shows up that like grief shows up a lot in my writing, and it's very therapeutic to write about things like that.
Yeah. And do you write it it sounds like you're writing like fiction, so you're writing through different characters, right? You're not writing like nonfiction. I mean, not autobiographical, right?
Correct. However, I did recently write a story that is pretty heavily autobiographical. It was about my Taekwondo teacher when I was a kid. So to briefly summarize, I had Taekwondo as a kid, and my I'm not going to say his name, but the grandmaster of my studio, he was a super nice guy, and he was very inspirational to all of us as kids. But he ended up doing something very illegal and like pulling a weapon on somebody, and there were a lot of legal issues. And so just kind of the story was about like, you know, what do you do with this guy who like really is like an inspiration to all of these kids, but is also, you know, bearing arms in public, you know? So that's what one of the stories that I think going to submit to programs is about. And through that story, I've kind of like talked about a little about my childhood and whatnot, but yeah.
Isn't it a little ironic, or not ironic, but someone who's like a grandmaster in Taekwondo, aren't like weaponless combat would bring arms to like a conflict.
Well, I mean, a lot of these people also have bad tempers, so I think his temper got the best of him. But I think he is a good dude. Just didn't make the right decision at that time. But
Yeah, I think Dan and I, we both done martial arts, and I know I've come across it. Like having a black belt doesn't mean you have a black belt in life.
Right.
Just having a black belt in a martial art. I mean, I think there's a lot of character building elements to martial arts. That's why I do it. But like, it doesn't mean that you're finally a sensei in like, how you should live your life. I guess there's some black belts who are like white belts
Cobra
at
Kai.
best.
You're talking about Cobra Kai.
Oh yeah, like Cobra Kai. Like that guy's not so good at life, but he can kick butt.
Yeah. So did you start jujitsu when you were in Japan, or had you already had a background in it?
Yeah, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back like in college years ago. I took a class for like semester, and I was like, oh, this is cool. But like my background was in karate and stand-up fighting. So I didn't take it too seriously. I did recognize like, okay, I can see how this is super helpful in the fight if it goes to the ground. But then I took a break from that for years. Then I had like skin issues with like psoriasis. But I went back to jiu-jitsu in the States just before the pandemic. I was doing it for like a year and a half or so. I did judo as well. And yeah,
throwing people on the ground.
Yeah, throwing people on the ground. So I did judo for a year and a half. And before that, I started jiu-jitsu again. And so I was doing them, like fairly regularly. But then the pandemic hit, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can't be rolling with dudes on the ground during the pandemic, but yeah, did you practice any martial arts at all after that? Other than Taekwondo, yeah.
After that, no. Unfortunately, I've been interested in jujitsu maybe. I was actually, I mean, not like this is not a martial art, but I was interested in doing Kyudo when I was in Japan, but I didn't end up doing it.
That's a martial art. Yeah, I guess that's.
Yeah, I didn't end up doing it, and so I'm super sad because climbing just kind of
took over,
chews up all my time. But
you can still find a Kyoto place in LA. Pasadena had one.
Yeah, I'll have to look into it. Yeah, I would love to get involved in Kyoto. It's very expensive, but it'd be cool.
It is, but you know what? It might be kind of boring at the very beginning. I went to one Kyoto class at the Pasadena Japan Cultural Center, and it's just standing, a lot of standing, a lot of ceremony, and then you don't get to touch a bow for a long time.
Right, it's like you have to walk with your right foot first into the dojo, and like there's stuff like that.
Yeah, but
it looks cool though.
Yeah, and like James, I'm sure you've like noticed differences like practicing jujitsu in Japan versus like in the States, right? Like it's very different, like how the Japanese approach everything, like but hobbies specifically, and it's very admirable. Like they are so driven with it. They usually have like one hobby, and they are like ride or die with that one hobby, and so committed.
I think you notice that in the school clubs too. Like I know my high school clubs, like it's, if you're in one club, that's taking up more than enough of your time. Like those Kyoto club kids, like every day practicing, or the fencing club. We have a fencing, so like, but like in the States, we'd be like, oh yeah, I'm in like 3 or 4 clubs, right? In like when I was in high school, I'm in 3 or 4 clubs. But if you say that in Japan, they'll be like, wait, are you dead? Like how can you do 3 or 4 clubs? That's ridiculous, because they're so focused. Like if you're in one club, okay, single focus, get that shit done.
Was climbing then different in Japan? Were you like doing drills of like, I'm going to practice grip first, and then you get to like 15 minutes, like if you have an hour practice, 45 minutes of drills, and then 15 minutes of actual climbing?
It's very different, the whole climbing culture in Japan versus the US. So first of all, like in Japan, it's just a lot harder. Like the routes are set much in a much more difficult way than in the US. in the US, gyms tend to have some easier routes just because they don't want newcomers to be discouraged and then just go, oh, I'm not going to do this. They want everyone to. But in Japan, like things that would be routes that would be considered like kind of like middle level in the US were like beginner in Japan. And I'm pretty like in the middle, still kind of like maybe like novice kind of level, I guess. So that was an adjustment. But they also have such like a like in the US, you can kind of like muscle through a lot of climbs, but in Japan, it's very technique oriented. So I learned a lot of pointers in regard to technique. And they have just like a much more pragmatic approach to climbing. Like it's not, I think in the US, it can be, there are some people who can be a bit egotistical about it and you kind of feel that in the gym. But in Japan, it's very like quiet. No one's really arrogant. You don't feel that from anybody in the gyms, which was really nice. And it was actually the place where I really got to practice my Japanese the most because I wasn't at school and like I had to engage with these people in Japanese, and they were super cool to me. Like the owner of the gym that I went to and his son, they would take me to Kyoto sometimes, do a climb with them. And I learned a lot from them. It was cool.
That's great.
That's dope. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, right now we're coming almost hour and a half ish. But I guess major lessons from coming back to the States. Any life lessons, new perspectives that you've gained? You mentioned how everyone should, try living in a different country, like with a different culture. Yeah, any kind of any new perspectives that you've gained from your experiences recently?
Honestly, I mean, we were talking about the things that I miss in Japan, but the thing that I probably miss most in Japan is the way that they're able to, I think, appreciate the little things in a way that we're not really used to here. Like, for instance, like if certain flowers are in bloom, then like your weekends are going to be like, oh, going to see, I don't know, the cherry blossoms, or you're going to go see like the, I don't know, whatever kinds of flowers are blooming at the time. And like there's, I think in Nara right now, there's like a wind chime festival going on. There was a lantern festival recently. And like those kinds of things I miss so much. And so I'm trying to like, I think, appreciate the little things, especially with regard to nature a bit more, from my experience in Japan. Because even though they have such like a brutal work culture, they still do, I think, find a way to appreciate like, basic things like food and nature and things that I really want to keep in mind, especially with like the hustle and bustle of Southern California. So, so that's probably my biggest takeaway. But also that everybody should travel abroad and live abroad, I think, for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I definitely, it's a humbling experience, you would say. Yeah.
Definitely. Like going to another place and not being able to speak any of the language is very humbling. So I'm so much more understanding and sympathetic for people who come here and they don't know much English. So I want to help them so much more now.
Awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, we're looking forward to like checking out, do you publish anything or you just write for yourself right now? Like where can people find your work or
Well, right now I haven't published anything, but I would love to, like, maybe like after I do a program, like I would love to publish something. So I will, update the Instagram page, etc. But yeah.
Have you thought about writing like for one of those like starting a Medium account or have your own blog or anything like that?
Not yet. Just because I don't know, maybe, but I'm not, haven't decided yet.
I'm just just saying you don't have to. Yeah.
Just for me right now.
So hey, that's awesome. Yeah. I it sounds like if anything, it's therapeutic, right? And that's a plus. That's a big plus. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in my time in Japan, like I really had to think a lot about what writing means to me and my relationship to it, because I just didn't have a lot of time to write when I was there. And I really just want to get better for myself and not
Mm,
more so for me than for other people, I guess.
yeah. I think if anything, that's probably what keeps it going, right? Maybe it's like for if you write for others or for a paycheck, maybe that it that doesn't have as much longevity, possibly. I know.
Right.
Yeah. 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 Awesome. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So let's
So thank you for having
yeah,
me on.
yeah, thank you. Hopefully this was fun.
Oh yeah, it was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
very fun. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. So we end with something called language corner. Yay, language corner. So
Woo.
woo. So basically any phrases or anything that you learn, like any like greetings or things that you learned in Japan or just any sort of language thing that you want to share or cultural thing. I can go first. I learned a phrase recently in Mandarin called 怀才不遇, which means 怀才means like a hidden talent. 不遇 means not not meeting. So it literally means to have a talent but no opportunity. I thought that was an interesting
Oh.
phrase. Yeah, so it's like someone's like a hidden talent. Like maybe there's someone who like for example, I read about this guy who had like thousands of pictures that he had printed, but they found them after he passed away, and they're like really nice photos, right? So I guess he had the talent for photography, but he never had the opportunity to display it somewhere or like in a museum or something like that. So like 怀才不遇. Anyways, that's my cultural word phrase for today. Sam or Dan?
Dan, you can go ahead.
Okay. I usually do a vocabulary word. Mine is jutai. Jutai is traffic. The word for traffic in Japanese, jutai.
Oh, okay.
Jutai. Ah.
I don't even know how to break that down. I have no
Okay.
idea.
I could probably look it up later, but yeah.
Sam?
So yeah, Sam, yeah.
I mean, mine's pretty basic, but whenever people ask what my favorite Japanese word is, it's shogunai. Just
Shogun.
yeah.
You know, I had a roommate. He used to say no ginger. I was like, no ginger. He goes shoganai, because the word for ginger is shoga, and then nai is no ginger. So it's like no ginger.
Oh,
No
that's
ginger.
funny.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
No ginger.
That's so just the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shogunai.
It's interesting because I think that's also part of like the Japanese philosophy of like shit happens, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
like something bad happens for, in some situations, I think, yeah, shogunai, really like it's perfect for that situation. Yeah. Like, okay, there's a typhoon coming. That's life.
Shogunai.
Like, shogunai.
Yeah,
What
shogunai.
as typhoon come? Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want us to? Nothing you can do about it.
Awesome.
A great word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Well, thank you
All right.
very
Well,
much.
thanks so much for.
Yeah,
thanks
thank
so
you
much.
so much.
All right.
It was good to meet you, Dan.
Nice meeting you.
It's alright.